Back with another fun-filled video for you. And today's video is actually part one of four videos I'm going to do on four of the most important South African knife makers out there. There's actually five, but unfortunately I don't have a knife from the fifth knife maker. So there are five South African knife makers that have really set the stage for South African knife making, and those five knife makers are Owen Wood, this gentleman here, Andre Thorburn, Erucus Blumeris, John Arnold, and of course Des Horn. Those five knife makers pretty much set the stage for knife making in South Africa as far as fit, finish, quality, and basically just the way you put a knife together. These guys have created the template for the younger generation of knife makers that are now coming out, like Clyde Challenor and Trevor Berger and J.D. Van de Winter. Those guys that have been making knives now for, you know, roughly 15, 16, maybe even 20 years. And the five guys that I mentioned have actually been making knives for about 30 years. So they actually set the stage for this kind of knife making, which is really, it's sort of the, if you want to look at it, they've kind of melded the concept of quality, fit, finish, and aesthetics in one package in such a way that it makes people like us spend ridiculous amounts of money for their art. And even though it's been over 35, maybe even 40 years of knife making, people still have difficulty in accepting this as an art form. Because technically it's a knife, so it makes it a little bit difficult to put yourself out there as an artist if your knife is still having difficulty being seen as art. I mean, the price that we pay for such beautiful pieces like what I have in my hand by Andre Thorburn, you kind of have to wonder, you know, why isn't it seen more, you know, as an art form like other forms of art, and instead it just keeps getting, you know, like whitewashed into, well, it's just a knife, it's just a knife. But having said that, let's take a look at this knife. So this is the Andre Thorburn L54 front flipper. This was one of his front flipper models that became very, very popular. That's one thing about Andre Thorburn, because he set the stage along with his other buddies. Even though they've got, you know, dominant knife models, it doesn't really matter. It looks like all the models that they make, everybody wants them. Just because they've proven themselves as knife makers, and they really have set the stage for fit, finish, and quality overall. So this knife is actually made by hand. It's a two-man team, or a two-person team. Andre Thorburn builds the knife and puts it together, and his wife Marguerite does the bolster work, as you can see. This is very, very classy to look at. It's a nice combination with the marble carbon fiber on here. See if I can get a little bit more into the light so you guys can see. Might be too much light, I don't know. Yeah, this might be a little too much light, but it's a really nice day out. And yeah, as you guys can see, this is really just a fantastic piece. Super smooth, runs on ceramic ball bearings. The knife is dead centered. No blade play. One of the unique things about Andre Thorburn is that his front flipper is really quite unique, where it's kind of raised up at the top. Very little jimping on the tip there, which tells you, while you can open it with your thumb and it's comfortable, it's it's actually more comfortable doing it with your index finger because you've got that bit of jimping at the top that allows you to easily access the knife and pop it open. It's got a medium detent. Andre Thorburn is fairly famous for medium detents on all of his knives. I guess his larger knives tend to have a harder detent. And believe it or not, creating detent itself is actually an art. There's lots of things that knife makers do to create the detent on a knife. One of the things that they'll do is that they'll make the hole quite shallow, which would create a, I guess a very, very, not shallow, but I guess a deep detent ball hole, which would make the knife have a very, very like light detent to it. And others will make it so that the ball is bigger. So I mean, just doing that itself to create the action, that's an art form in itself. And these guys, it's different for every knife. He's also got the very famous for the file work on the back of the knife. He's the one that's well known for it. Ericus Blumeris also does it as well. He did study under Andre Thorburn for like a short period of time. I'm guessing possibly maybe a year, and then he realized that he also had the talent. And actually, even in the beginning, Ericus Blumeris' knives seemed to kind of mimic Andre Thorburn, but now you see the knives, they're knives, you hold up their knives up against each other, they look completely different. And you'll see that in the next video, because I'm going to be doing a video on Ericus Blumeris next. But yeah, Andre Thorburn is one of the guys that set the center stage for the quality. And what's great about Andre Thorburn is that his designs don't seem so off the wall as far as what Americans like in their knives, because there are South African knife makers that will make blade shapes, knives made from materials that are so foreign that a lot of us just won't go for that. And I think Andre Thorburn found the middle ground. Because he seems to stick with materials like marble carbon fiber. The zirconium is great, and it's not so foreign to us, whereas a lot of other knife makers would use things like whalebone and shark's teeth and ivory tusks and, materials that are on knives that, even though they would look fantastic on a knife, just knowing that it's that material, some of us may kind of be a little bit standoffish to have that on a knife, and it's just a matter of taste. And Andre Thorburn really has gotten the concept of taste down perfect. His craftsmanship can't be equaled. Just the way he builds a knife. I mean, you can see the screws on this knife, but they're so tiny. It's almost like he wants you to see the screws as maybe an afterthought, or try not to notice them at all. And it actually works. He has done quite a lot on his knives for aesthetics to be accepted by us as knife collectors. And it's pretty difficult to do that. The way that in a way that all of us would accept it. We just have to kind of open our minds as far as what we're seeing aesthetically on a knife, because a lot of us are very, very picky with what we want on our knives. And I think that Andre Thorburn is able to find the correct medium to allow us to accept any foreign material. For example, white Westinghouse. When I first saw white Westinghouse, I was like, I don't know if I want that on my knife. But as time grew, slowly but surely, white Westinghouse kind of grew on people. And now, everybody would love to have that material on their knife. And actually, all white Westinghouse is refrigerator material from the 50s. He's actually made that material look and be very, very well accepted. What I should have done was bring out that knife with the white Westinghouse on it, but I did not. I just wanted you guys to take a look at this knife because this is actually what I'm carrying today. But as you can see, the fit and finish on this is just spectacular. He's got the smoothness tuned in perfectly. Yeah, runs on ceramic ball bearings. This knife is just dead centered on. There is no blade play on it. Really nice pocket clip, although this pocket clip is very popular in South Africa. A lot of knife makers use it. It's pretty much become their staple in pocket clips. Every once in a while you'll see something a little bit different, but this is pretty much what most knife makers have on their knives. Arugas Blumeris uses it. I believe J.D. Van de Winter uses it. It's just a really nice looking pocket clip with the ceramic ball on there. Catch on your pants. It's really just fantastic. The star of the show on this piece, obviously, is the bolster work, which is done by his wife, Marguerite, and she does some really, really wild designs on the knives. This is just a small example of what she does. But she can do animals, she can do people, she can do... I think I've seen like a racing car on one of them. Really cool. But for the most part, she's got free reign on the bolster work and what she wants to put on the bolster. A lot of the bolster work, I have to say, and this is just my own opinion, it's still beautiful, but a lot of the guys, some of the artwork's a little bit too feminine for us. We kind of like to see something a little bit more masculine. And she's kind of been doing that lately. There's one where there's like a circle and they got these cool golden arrows shooting into the bolster. That one's been real popular. And she actually contributes quite a lot to Andre's work as far as the pricing for the knife. And in other words, what I'm saying is that the work that Marguerite does, while it's only bolster work, it's so beautiful that it actually equals all the work that Andre does. So it's kind of like a 50-50 partnership. I mean, yeah, she only does the bolster work, but if you can imagine the hours of work it takes to create a design like this on a knife, because she's doing it by hand, and she's doing it on zirconium in this case. That's a lot of hard work, and I think a lot of people tend to miss that's one of the reasons why your knife is so expensive, or where most of your money goes to, is the time that it takes to create the art to put on the knife. And it's just quite difficult for all of us to accept how hard that is to do that and to have it all come together. Because if you can imagine, does anybody believe for even a minute that, she would actually put this design on the knife in one shot with no mistake? Because the longer it takes to make a knife, that's costly. And so, if they mess up, that's, they could lose money on it. So that's really one of the reasons why Andre Thorburn is so popular, because he takes the time to create the knife and make it a solid work of art. And because he does it that way, it's because of that he puts so much time and effort into the knives that now the younger knife makers out there, like Clyde Challenor and J.D. Van de Winter and Trevor Berger and all those guys, they can't do anything less than that when it comes to knife building. Andre Thorburn, Owen Wood, Arugas Blumeris, John Arnold, they set the stage for the quality of the knife. And they can never go back, or you can never go down, and they're the leaders in South Africa for this quality of knife making. And that's really why I'm so attracted strictly to South African knives, because every time I pick up a South African piece, it's always a surprise, always. And I've got 40 South African customs, and each one of them is just a wonder to me. And I can see all the time and effort that it takes to create the knife. Even beginning makers now, like Henny Duplessis, that are just starting out, they're now doing that as well. They're trying to find their way into this craft, and they fashion themselves after the masters, and they won't put out any work that's less than that. And that's pretty much what this video is about. And I just wanted you guys to take a look at the work that these guys do. The backspacer is G10. That's not a material that I'm crazy about. G10 is really just a filler material. But other than that, it's all titanium, marble carbon fiber, zirconium. The blade on this is CTS XHP. It's no slouch. We have Andre Thorburn's signature there. The only thing that saddens me is that on the other side of the knife, it should be Marguerite's signature as well, somewhere on the knife, because a lot of people buy Andre's knives specifically, in many cases, for the bolster work. They love, obviously, the action and the materials, the way that Andre Thorburn puts it together. But what makes the knife stand out amongst other South African knife makers is the bolster work that his wife does on there. And who am I to say, but I really think her name should be on the other side of the blade, right next to Andre's. Or what they could do is recreate the logo and maybe put Marguerite's name inside the circle of that logo, and where it says Andre A. Thorburn and maybe Marguerite Thorburn right in the center somewhere. Her name, she deserves the recognition to be on each and every knife, and I just think it's a shame that she's not. But whatever. That's Andre's decision. I'm not going to press that. But yeah, I can't not say that her work is just as dominated, or just as important as Andre's, because it is. And so that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about with Andre Thorburn as my first knife maker that I'm going to be visiting in this series. The next one will be on a Rucus Plumeris, and I will be back soon to do that video. This is Omar, your Knife of the Party, guys, signing off, hoping you've enjoyed this video. And if you're ready to step up into the world of South African knives, Andre Thorburn is the perfect person to start. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Please like and subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video, if you found this information at all interesting, or if you can even maybe think of a topic that you want me to speak on. I will. I'm not an expert in everything. My expertise is really only on my knife collection and what it is that I've learned. I do this to share, and I expect to be called out if I give out any kind of wrong information. So I will talk to you guys later in the next video, and you guys have a great weekend.